Okay, this is your moment to stretch. Remember, you were promised. So take a moment. Been sitting a long time. So it's really a joy to be here with you. I'm Mira Wasserman, and I have the pleasure of introducing our two filmmakers. I'll tell you just a little bit about them, and then we'll engage in some conversation. So Sosena Solomon is an award-winning maker of social documentary films and a multimedia visual artist. I have a long introduction, but I want you to hear from her. So for right now, let me just say that she creates these amazing three-dimensional immersive experiences. She's now teaching here at Penn in the Weitzman School of Design's Department of the Arts. And the other filmmaker, our own Peter Decherney, is a filmmaker and a scholar of film. He is professor of cinema and media studies here at Penn and the faculty director of the Online Learning Initiative at Penn. He is the author or editor of 6 books, and he also publishes widely in all kinds of journals and social media, and he makes documentaries that bring him around the world. So one thing that Sosena and Peter let me know as we sat down today is that they have never seen their film on a big screen before. So this is really a premiere in a lot of ways. It's very exciting to share this evening with them. And the first thing I want to ask both of you is, how did it feel? And did anything surprise you seeing it for the first time on a big screen? Sosena, you want to go first?
Sure. Hi. Thank you everyone for coming. This is a real pleasure to be here. You know, it's a very intimate glimpse into this community, and so seeing it on the screen felt even more intimate. The close-ups felt even closer on a larger screen, and really getting the point of view of some of these characters felt a bit more, it felt more immersive actually. So it was exciting to see, you know, some of our mistakes, or it just felt like there was a little distortion in this projection, but overall it was really nice to feel part of the experience. So yeah.
And Peter?
Yeah, thanks Mira. Thanks everyone for coming, and thank you to the Philadelphia Jewish Film and Media Festival. Is it still at the end or not festival? But we've enjoyed working with you guys for many, many years, and so it's really nice to be here showing the film. So it's not just the first time we've seen it on a big screen, but the first time we've seen it with actual live people in the same room, and that really changes it. Maybe a little nervous, wondering what people were thinking as they watched it. We've shown it at festivals for the past year, but only on Zoom, and that's been great because we've been able to show it to people all around the world, but really great to be here live.
Can you tell us how the project came about? What was the first spark?
Yeah, so this is something we spoke about the very first time we met. Somehow we discovered we both had an interest in this history, and you know, it's something a few years ago that we were both starting to learn a little bit more about with the rest of the world. There's a lot more coming out about this the Red Sea diving resort story, and also lots of news stories about the protests you saw here in Israel, but also about the community that still exists in Ethiopia. And there are political debates, there are religious debates about them, and we felt like we wanted to know their side of the story, which doesn't get told. And so that was the reason to really to Gondar, to try to learn about the community, to meet the community, and try to amplify some of their stories.
And I also think Peter and I have a mutual interest in, you know, the cultural preservation and this kind of spiritual preservation, and just so fascinated with the history of Ethiopian Jews. And so Peter was, you know, was very well versed in virtual reality, and we talked about perhaps creating a 360 camera documentation of some of these rituals. And so I think that kind of kick-started the entry point into this. We didn't really know, we did as much research as we could from here, but it's really until we you know, went to the compound that we really discovered what was there. And I think that really took us in a different direction, which is also quite exciting. So.
So tell us more about that. What were some of the surprises, some of the unanticipated things that you found once you got to Gondar?
We knew that this was a very devoted spiritual community, but I think what was exciting, we knew that they were in limbo waiting to go back to Israel, but what was a surprise, I think, is just what they were doing while they were sustaining themselves. So the circus, team and the soccer, just like the youth and just how they had so much, just kind of bliss, this kind of energy that we felt while they were there. And that was really part of their resilience and also part of their dedication to their faith that we were really inspired by. So that was a kind of a lovely surprise, I think, that we discovered.
Yeah, so we were there twice in 2019 and 2020, and we initially thought we wanted to tell this story about family separation and people in Gondar who missed their families and were trying to get together and reconnect with their families in Israel. And what we found were these more hopeful stories. People living in limbo for decades, but still kind of hopeful every day and preparing for the moment when they finally get permission to emigrate. And so we met Getu, who's the soccer coach, in 2019. We actually went back thinking that it would be only his story. But actually, when we came back, he was sick. And we couldn't film him, and we actually tried to get him to a hospital, and we couldn't. By the time we left, he was actually starting to recover. And a kind of amazing moment when he went back to the synagogue for the first time and saw everyone. But everybody did it on Shabbat, so we couldn't film it. So almost all the footage you see of soccer is from the first trip. And then we started to look for other stories to tell, and it became a bit expanded. So it's about the circus, and about the teacher, and about the head of the synagogue. What's his name? Anyway, you heard at the end of the longer documentary, the feature, that during the pandemic, Penina Tamanakaka, who's the Minister of Immigration, arranged for 2,000 members of the Gondar community to emigrate to Israel. He was actually on the first plane, about 200 people. So he did reconnect with his father. So he was
it was so striking how joyful the movie was, and seeing yours first made that contrast really striking. So I'm curious about some of the artistic choices that you made in filming. We were just right in there in the action, both during the worship services and also in the soccer and the circus. Is that something that you had to talk together about how you were going to do? Where did the vision for putting us right in the middle of the action come from?
So we were using mirrorless cameras, DSLR cameras, and fixed lenses, which really give you a limited capability in terms of, we're not using long lenses. So we had to physically be close. So we kind of, used the silent camera approach, where we really just wanted to blend and be part of the landscape and create as much observational material as possible, and then build from there. And that's also a technique of trust building and just really, because it did take some time. I feel like the first trip, we had to kind of break through and really kind of tell everyone what we were trying to do, and so that was a little tricky to gain the access in the first trip. So the artistic vision was really, came from just in terms of how we approached the whole film. I think it was just something that was a direct relation to our connection to the community, if that makes sense. So it wasn't something that we planned out on paper. It just kind of transpired based on our approach, I would say.
Yeah, and I said earlier, we're trying to amplify their stories and give a sense of what it's like to be there and be part of the community. One criticism we've had of the film, or comment, is that people who've been there say it's not what it looked like for them. It looks a little bit more desolate, and the provisions are worse, and it's not as colorful. And I think that's true. We filmed it in a way that brought forth the energy we felt, and the colors we saw, and the beauty we saw.
Can you tell us about how you formed relationships? It seemed like you had a lot of intimacy and trust with, especially the people that you were highlighting.
I think just showing up without the camera for the first day and not really turning it on and just really just being there and observing. I think we did a bit of that and just talking to people. I mean, we went through several interviews that we did not use in the beginning, and I, you know, had to kind of break through this performative aspect of what people felt that we needed, and we, you know, really didn't want that. And so, remember we had the interview with the head of the camp. He like brought people in, yeah, one by one, and it was just like they sat down and they're like, tell them your story, and we're like, no, we don't want that, you know. So we really had to, you know, just kind of earn that position before we actually turned the camera on, I think.
Yeah, I remember Bertu Khan, the woman with vitiligo, who's featured quite a bit. We spent a lot of time with her, even though she's not one of the featured people in the film. She, you know, when we went back the second time, she said, "Oh, I lied to you about my story the first time," and tell us the truth.
Yeah, I mean, Ethiopians are very suspicious and just like, you know, they're conservative with their narrative. You know, it's very vulnerable to just tell your story, so you kind of have to, yeah, you're concerned about what your neighbors are going to say when you go back. So it's not as easy as just like giving an interview. So we have to kind of break through some of those walls.
Yeah, on other films I've worked on, I've been in communities for you know, in contact with them for a year or more, by email or text or phone or FaceTime, but it was impossible because very few people in the community didn't have any kind of contact. But we were in contact with leaders of the community and some of the organizations that support them, and having their trust really helped.
And has anyone in the community been able to see the film?
That's the saddest part for me.
Yeah, so Rabbi Yosef has seen it, and we are trying to arrange a screening at the synagogue. So right after we filmed it, basically things shut down because of COVID. The synagogue shut down, and it was shut down until pretty recently, until this summer. So the food program you see, that all changed. They started giving food to take home. They quickly started to teach people about social distancing and train people to go out and teach people about COVID. But you know, there are like 9 or 10 people living in one room homes, and so there is no such thing as social distancing really. It's been hard to trust the numbers about infection rates. And so this summer they did start to open up the camp again. They run a summer camp where 2,000 kids from the community go to the camp in this very small synagogue.
And you mentioned that there's been a bit more migration since the film was made. Ethiopia is back in the news with a lot of upheaval and violence right now. What can you tell us about what's happened to the community since you finished filming?
It's very sad news, as you suggest. So there's a civil war that started in Tigray, the neighboring region, Gondar and Amhara. But as the Tigrayan forces first defeated and fought back the government forces, they started to spread, and now they're in Amhara, going through Amhara. We just read today, marching to Addis Ababa. At least one member of the community who was fighting on the government side was killed, but also just because of COVID and the Civil War, there's been more poverty, fewer job opportunities, just more general violence, and some members of the community have been killed in just regular urban violence, and yeah, it's very different. Actually, Sosena was just in Addis last week.
Yeah, doing another project, and definitely, I mean, it was just, you know, I didn't go outside of Addis, but you could feel military presence, a lot of fear in people's eyes, and it was pretty tragic, so.
The film itself is evidence of the success of your collaboration. You clearly work together really in a beautiful way. It got me wondering about what you both each bring to the project. It's about Ethiopian Jews. Neither of you is an Ethiopian Jew, I understand, but one of you is a Jew, not Ethiopian, and another is Ethiopian and not Jewish. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about how your own identities and experiences helped you make the film and helped you to work together.
That's great. Just understanding Ethiopian culture. I grew up in Kenya and lived in the United States most of my life, and then just started going back to Ethiopia to do last few projects. And so just really getting the nuances of some of the cultural, just being Ethiopian and really feeling like I could kind of access, some of the intimacy a bit quicker maybe than Peter. Just conducting some of the interviews, I felt a connection and also an understanding. And Peter had, I think, the nuances of the actual religious practices, and he also I learned a lot working with Peter in that sense. And so we really kind of collaborated in that way, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I mean, it's kind of amazing to go and they're singing the same tunes, they're saying the same prayers, they're observing the same rituals I'm used to in the U.S., in Israel. So there's an immediate connection there that they feel, I think, as well. We also have kind of different artistic styles. Sosena's works, more impressionistic and about installations. I'm more of a narrative filmmaker. I think that comes through as well. That those things end up working together really well in the film.
What's next for this film? Can you tell us how it's doing? How is it being seen? COVID really intervened at an inopportune moment for the film's release, as you mentioned, but I got to see it online. So what do you know about how it's finding an audience?
Well, it's on Discovery Plus, and that's kind of the home for the work, and it will be on there for a few years, I think. So we're really happy about that, and we've traveled some festivals.
Yes, it's been to some festivals of African film and Jewish film, and there have been a few screenings at synagogues and schools, and definitely a few more school screenings in the future. We're hoping it becomes a kind of regular annual screening time for it.
Yeah, this is really a very meaningful moment in which to have this viewing, to have the opportunity to talk to you and to learn so much about Ethiopian Jews. I think it's probably a first Sigid celebration in Philadelphia, so we're all a part of something historic tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about projects that you're now working on?
Yeah, I have a few different projects, but one is related to this. I was hoping to do a book of photography and tell the kind of broader history that doesn't make it into the film, or the context for the film. I was actually supposed to go to Ethiopia last month, but because of the Civil War, I had to postpone that. Hopefully later in this year, things will look better.
Yeah, and similar to Peter, I wanted to do an extension installation based off of some of the footage that didn't make it into the film. So a bit of a non-linear, three-dimensional experience in the gallery that's related to the film. And I have some other documentary work that I'm doing on my half-sister, some more autobiographical stories of women in my family that's in production.
Well, I want to invite everyone here to join me in congratulating both of you for does anyone who's here want to ask a question, make a comment? Share congratulations, Marion?
Yeah, first of all, I thought it was fascinating, and I thank you very much for presenting it, making it and presenting it. How did you communicate with the people there? What language? Who spoke it?
Yeah, we actually had an amazing translator and local producer who ends up in the film twice, though you wouldn't know, he didn't tell you. And he was great. He wasn't someone from the Jewish community. He was a film student, actually, at the University of Gondar. And we went in 2019, he had never met anyone in the Jewish community. We went back about 8 months later, he knew everyone, and was really actually able to open a lot of doors and help us meet people. And we've been able to stay in touch with the community a little bit through him as well. I still write to him every couple of weeks through Collaboration too.
So when you first got there, you started actually you interviewed people right away and started filming right away? like the second day, is that what you said?
So we had a research trip, just to kind of, figure out the lay of the land. And I think, we did hesitate before we turned the camera on. I don't know that we did it on the first day. We did take our time.
Because I just wondered how you gain the trust of the people that you're.
I feel like the second trip is really when we started the real production. It did take some time. Just like the coming back and the commitment, and then seeing that we were really dedicated to the project really shifted things.
How long were the two trips?
Just a few weeks of each one. No, but we shot very long days. Yeah.
Thank you, Peter and Sosena, for this beautiful contribution. I was completely unaware about the situation, the story, so you really reveal a lot to us. Two questions. One is about production aspect. When you were there, were just only the two of you filming? Did you employ people from the place, or there's somebody else coming from America with you? How basically you made the film? The second question, are you in dialogue with Decherney, with other directors? So do they know about, does he know about your project, and so on? This is my two questions.
Yeah, we should have mentioned that actually. I spoke to Levi Zini yesterday. It was a short Q&A with him, and somehow that will be available online. Olivia can tell you the details.
Yeah, actually, both of these films are playing on demand for 7 days, the second week of the film festival. So November 14th through the 20th, you could see these films again on our platform. And we're going to have Peter's interview with the other director as well.
And as Sosena said earlier, we really wanted to keep it small. We didn't use big cameras. We used very small cameras, some sound recording equipment. We had a very small team. We had a few Penn students with us on both trips, people you want to know, Nicola, San Jose's majors.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Peter and I really are advocates for kind of, bringing on students and creating that educational, just giving that as a gift as part of the work that we do, so.
So thank you guys for the film. It was really fantastic. I thought this whole screen was really fantastic. I was wondering how you chose which people to focus on and what footage to include. So you're shooting for a few weeks each time. I imagine that you have to really narrow it down and how you chose to construct a narrative around these people.
Yeah, there are different reasons we would get connected to different people. Sometimes we would just see someone had amazing energy and start to follow them and talk to them and get to know them some more. I still remember there was this one girl who we spoke to and just fascinating, and then could never find her again. But there are also so many other people whose stories we spoke to them about and followed them for a very long time and didn't make it in. We came back and looked through the interviews and read the transcripts and then put together a script and thought about the way the different pieces went together and how they could talk about different aspects of their experience and the community. We also had an amazing editor, Jamie Mira. And she saw things in there we didn't see. And actually, I was watching tonight more than before. I was remembering all the old cuts we had that told slightly different versions of the story. In particular, one that really focused on all the teaching that happened.
The only thing I'll add is I think after being there for a while, really noticing kind of like the key players in the compound, or folks that really kept it moving, or that took initiative or leadership, and then that was also something that really intrigued us.
Yeah, so many of them were so young.
I loved watching the circus scenes because everybody just looked like they were enjoying themselves so much. I'd love to meet each and every person.
Yeah, when Olivia first watched it, she said that should be its own separate film, the circus, and we actually agree, and we thought that too, but we came to that story a little bit late.
It was actually like our last kind of finale, I think, of shooting.
Okay, thank you so much for coming.